And welcome back to another episode of the Moe Rock Show right here on the Los Angeles Tribune, where we talk leadership with some of the world's top thought leaders in with various degrees of industries. And I'm so excited and honored because someone very special to the Los Angeles Tribune is co-hosting this week's program. That's, of course, Mr. Jim Miller, somebody that has reached the top of many different industries using, Jim, the techniques, skills, and attributes and qualities that we're going to talk about today. A subject matter that I know you're very qualified to talk about, and that's, of course, the subject matter of influence. A lot of times people forget that we human beings, Jim, we're social creatures, right? We're not always logical creatures or creatures of reason. We're creatures that are social animals. And today we're going to spend the next hour discussing that with a group of folks that I know our audience is going to love hearing from. But before we talk about the expert panelists, I want to give the ball to you, Jim, to talk about this subject matter of influence. And, a lot of naysayers and a lot of people that may be negative regarding the arts of social dynamics use words like manipulation, while there are professors like Dr. Robert Cialdini that use words like influence. And I want to give you the floor for a couple minutes, Jim, just to get the ball rolling and set the tone of the program. What does influence mean to you, please?
Well, Mo, first of all, it's great to be here, and thank you for having me on the show. Of course, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. And what influence is the ability and also to the desire for me to enter into the way that you see your life and you see the world and start to create for you another vision that might embolden you or enhance you, empower you to actually live a better life, a more fulfilled life, make more money, have better relationships, get better jobs. In other words, what it does is it gets you past your resistance. It gets you past your limitations whenever I can influence you into seeing the world and moving into the world in a more powerful way. And this is what influence has done for me, more so than I contrast it to selling, right? If you read all my Facebook posts, you'll see that I quite frequently post on there that sales is dead. And I believe that because the truth is that the art of influence gives us the opportunity to have more enlightened, more intelligent, more emboldened conversations with people who are a lot more equipped these days than they used to be in the past to actually engage in these conversations. So influence is an extreme, as a matter of fact, the World Economic Forum, right? Very big place, did a study on what are going to be the most desired skill sets in employees for employers. And they took a look at over 17 million employers that are listed on Indeed, and over 65% of them, right, listed 10 specific skill sets that are the most sought after going into this new movement into the world. And the top three, two of them are in the realm of influence, persuasion, and negotiation. The number one being strategic thinking, right? So I can venture to say that the fact that 52% of all college graduates are going into sales, right? That influence, persuasion, negotiation, all of these soft skills are absolutely relevant, very poignant, but most importantly, they're very desired and sought after by employers in today's marketplace.
I think that's a brilliant statistic to share, Jim, and something that, and we're about to have the panelists join us in about a minute or so. Something that is still shocking to me is the fact that the majority of people in business fail to recognize and understand this. There are individuals that are so well educated in the realm of business, and whether it's K through 12 or higher education, and a lot of people that learn supposedly what it takes to be successful in business, and yet this concept that we're discussing this week is often neglected, overlooked, and not appreciated. And yet, in today's world order and in today's hyper-competitive environment, without the ability to influence, you're going to be in the dinosaur club. You're going to be And so I'm so excited, and we have a powerful panel this week. So with that being said, I want to introduce Rex Sikes, who was the former business partner of the co-creator of NLP, Richard Brandler, and he is a legend in his own right when it comes to things. You're
muted, Mo.
Another instructor of NLP, Dr. Bill Janishak. No, that was called Creating Suspense, Dr. Bill. And of course, Alicia Magnus Lewis, one of our in-house talents here at the Los Angeles Tribune, our business director, Joy Willett, another master of NLP, and Christina Rendon, someone that understands mindfulness, entrepreneurship, someone that as a clinical therapist also understands how the mind works in a very powerful way. And so I'm going to step back, Jim, and have you guide this conversation, but I'll just kick it off by asking Dr. Bill to make some opening comments. What does influence mean to you, Dr. Bill? And then back to you, Jim. Dr. Bill, please.
I resonate just really good with what Jim was talking about. It is the ability to show somebody maybe something that they're not seeing that's going to be better for them, and influence them to think at a higher level. And you had talked before about sometimes it gets a bad rap. You talk about manipulation and the like. And the whole NLP industry, it kind of gets shaded with that because people were using it for not good things. But influence is just typically helping people think clearer and better and coming along and helping them. It is like all goes down to intent. And that's what I believe that is.
Absolutely. The fact that these skill sets get a bad name is something that really doesn't take away from their importance or the impact that they have in the human dynamic, especially these days where so much of what we get accomplished in business is based upon relationships and the ability to truly understand the other person's side of things, that empathetic mindset. Christina, mindset is so crucial when it comes to the whole concept of influence and being able to be somebody who can get things done for people or for their business. What does mindset play when it comes to influence? Tell me.
So I feel like I'm jumping into such a beautiful conversation. And I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me with that question is, how do we define influence, both on, the visible levels and how things are manifesting, as well as the more subtle levels, and when it comes to mindset or the subconscious. And for me, when I think of true influence, I think of influencing aligned patterns, because we are such creatures of habit, of patterns. And when there's somebody who, has an aligned power within themselves to have a leadership type position as well as an influence on people, there's a lot of beauty that can come from that. In terms of helping others be inspired to an aligned mindset, seeing their potential and align with a common vision. And when it comes to influencing, I do think it is being in touch with the subtleness of influence. I think there's a lot that can come from the external, really motivated big things, but I think there is a lot to say around mindset and tuning into kind of the intentions behind it. Mm-hmm. And I think people pick up on that as well. And so I think that's going back to what you're saying around empathy. I think people can talk and teach, and that has that can make a lot of impact. But what really has a lot of influence is when somebody's in integrity with themselves and showing up in life and influencing through their presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
So very good. Very good stuff. Joy, I know that you work in, again, just an extraordinary field with NLP, But and in doing so, I know that persuasion and influence are one of the columns of the foundations, if you will, of what it is that that you have your expertise in. Would you mind sharing with us how the skill set of persuasion and influence has shaped your life or your career, or maybe the lives of others?
Gosh, that's a really big question, Jim, isn't
I know.
it? Yeah, very good. Well, again, like I'm going to be kind of piggybacking off of everyone here, because to me, first you have to define, like Christina was and Bill and yourself, what is influence, right? And what is persuasion? And in my model of the world, right, that's an NLP term, right?
Yes.
No one will ever be persuaded or influenced to do anything that is against their inner core values. So it's all about establishing that, as Christina was saying, those subtle, subconscious, vibratory feelings of rapport, right? It feels like that warm feeling. And those are different ways that we can create that. And from that basic building block of establishing rapport with another human being, then we have communication, then we have an opening, right? To be able to, whatever it is, influence or persuade. However, people like others who are like themselves. So again, it comes back to no one will be able to sell, persuade, influence, or even lead unless there's not that core feeling that I really trust and like this person in front of me who's talking or sharing, whatever it is, whether it's someone on a stage or someone sitting next to you in an airplane, right? Mm-hmm. Or whether you're working with a client, right? So I'll leave it at that for now.
That is so fundamental, what you said. It truly is fundamental. Rex, share with me, if you would, what are your thoughts on this subject? I know you've got so many things you can say. Just go ahead and talk. What do you believe?
Yeah. Well, thanks for leaving it open like that. But first, I want to correct the record. I was never partnered with Bandler. We worked together for a decade or more, but we weren't partners. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. The subject of influence, I guess you'd have to say, is, what do you mean? Because you can't not influence. We're always influencing. The question is what direction are we influencing in? Are we influencing someone to find the great infinite possibilities and resources and opportunities within themselves, or are we trying to get them to do something that they really don't want to do? And so, the notion of manipulation is simply, in the old days, you used to manipulate things with your hands or your fingers, with the idea that you had an intent or control. And that's been, now said that we can manipulate people. Well, I have always thought of it this way, all of this stuff, all of this NLP and all this what the biggest disservice that's been done to humankind is the marketing of neurolinguistic programming with the idea of ninja skills and covert manipulation or subtle, secretive kinds of things. Because it sets up in people's minds that, you're controlling another person, you're doing something that they're unaware of, that you're somehow infiltrating their consciousness and blah. If your heart's in the right place, and Joy had said, people tend to, people like people who are like themselves. So people tend to say yes to people who they like and who are like them. And if people understand that their interests are in your heart, first and foremost, that you're looking out for them, that you're going to take care of them, that they can trust you, that you're a person of integrity and a person of value and worth, then they're more apt to maybe do what you suggest because they trust you. But the biggest influence you have is whether you walk your talk, whether you exemplify the very things that you speak, or whether you're somehow, out of alignment or incongruent with that. So you have to be a living model of what it is that you want people to do to really successfully do that. Now, that doesn't say that you can't get people to do what they don't want to do. I mean, we can, some people will say, well, they really wanted to do it, and so that's why they did it. And others say you can't do it. What I'm saying is a lot of people kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. And what I recommend, what I would hope for most people, look, I have a program called How to Get People to Do What You Want Without Begging, Pleading, Whining, or Guilt Tripping. And my point is when a person knows that you are genuine, when you're honest, when you're sincere, without any techniques, without any explanations, without anything, when they get that vibe with you, then they're willing to walk with you for as long as you're trustworthy and ethical and honest and filled with integrity.
You're absolutely correct. And you know what I've found also too is that there's often a belief, and Alicia, I'd like for you to share your thoughts on this. Alicia, our brilliant business director here at the Los Angeles Tribune. There's a lot of people who believe that in order to be influential or to be persuasive, you have to be powerful, or you have to have a specific personality type, or you would have to have achieved some ranking or status in life, or otherwise you are not influential. You're basically, for the most part, you're in some sense powerless. But isn't it true that all of us can be influential? And what is it about all of us that actually allows us to be persuasive in life, allows us to be influential in doing virtually anything we want in life?
Jim, I think that's such an interesting exploration that you just led us down, right? Because I think everyone has influence. It can be down to going out to eat with a group of friends or family members, and what are we in the mood to eat today, right? And so I think when you think about influence, another aspect and school of thought around it is, how do you create awareness of what a goal is? What is the desired outcome? So with the example of having influence for going out to eat, the desired outcome is going out to eat and eating something that everyone will enjoy, right? So how do you create awareness around options? Are there time constraints? It's really about sharing information and then allowing people to feel like they can opt in to an outcome that fills their needs and their desires for what they're looking for in an outcome. And is that outcome shared amongst the group, amongst the family members? And part of it is creating awareness of what is the topic? What are we trying to accomplish here? And then sharing details on information that will help people come to their own desired outcome and conclusion. And hopefully, as Rex was alluding to, and Dr. Bill and also Christina on mindset, as well as Joy, is how is the person going to feel once they decided? So if you're in the mood to get pizza and everyone decided Mexican, did you feel like your voice was heard? Did you feel like you got tricked into getting the food type that you didn't want? And this kind of mindset can be applied across a number of topics, but that feeling of safety, of trust, am I trusting the person that is sharing information? Ultimately, how is the person going to decide once they've decided? How are they going to feel once they've decided? That's something very important to think about.
Okay, thank you very much. No, it is true that because all of us have relevance in life. All of us, we're with the, this. It was interesting because Dr. Cialdini, in his anniversary edition re-release of Influence, added an additional principle of influence to the core principles that he had, and that new principle of influence that he added was unity, right? In other words, how is it that we can have conversation where all of us feel that we're aligned, right? That everyone has been acknowledged, their relevance, their importance, and this is something that's really at times very difficult, because the truth is that we have a tendency as human beings to be quite myopic, right? And we're quite selfish sometimes in wanting to achieve our own agenda. And so we attempt to bring this agenda upon other people. But Dr. Bill, I'd like to address this too. You know, the word influence, the etymology of it, right? Which I'm big into etymology because it helps me to understand the purpose and the actual function of the word, right? But the influere, to flow into, right? So influence, what I have found in my own professional work, if I am attempting to enter into a conversation of influence, I'm not so much focused on my position, but I'm focused on entering into and exploring and determining and understanding what your positioning is, so that I can then create a conversation that is aligned with it, right? That's going in the same direction, that's maybe speaking into the same listening. Would you like to speak into that a little bit?
I would love to, and I love the fact that you look up words like that too, because I do that in just about every time because I do the same thing. It's like, what does this really mean? Because sometimes we have a perception of one meaning, and you get to the root and you go, wow, this is really powerful. Words are powerful. So first of all, I love that you do that. The second thing is, I don't even know if I have to be here, because I just have to say I agree with what Jim said, because it is the same thing. I'm a doctor, and I deal with a lot of simple things, some hard things, and I'm a hippie doctor, so we're dealing with lifestyle. So I need to influence my patients to change something or add something or delete something that they may not really want to do on the surface, but just like you said, I'll enter into the flow of the conversation. Well, tell me what your thoughts are on not doing this or adding this. What's the resistance that you'd have here? Okay, well, is this better, or would you rather have this? And most people, they react. And like you said earlier, that I think Christina was talking about, we're just creatures of patterns. And so it's almost, if you do that pattern interrupt and you say, okay, well, you want X, Y. And then they have to stop and think. And it's just helping them clarify their thoughts. And in that instance, that's how you influence. But you influence on their terms. And then it's not like ninja tricks. And, here's the secret embedded command that's going to make them fall to their knees and do whatever you say. It's entering where they want for their best interest to help them become better versions of themselves, truly, and get over those obstacles. Because it's like Stephen Pressfield, we all have resistance to changing, or maybe I shouldn't do this. And if you can cater them along and be their Sherpa and help them to get to where they want, not only are they going to build better rapport with you, they're going to thank you for it. And they're going to be better people. That's just good for the universe.
Mm-hmm. Anyone like to speak on that same question?
Sure. And I may approach it a little bit circular, but first, I think there's a contract that needs to be expressed between the person that you're attempting to influence for their own good and whether or not they actually want to be influenced for their own good. So, I mean, that should go without saying, but some people decide, I know what's best for you, and then we do it. Parents tend to do that, and I've been a parent, so I've done it. So, the idea is that if their heart is really, their heart is in your heart, then you walk with them and don't have to pull them. A tour guide points out all these wonderful things walking with you or showing you the things, so that you can notice the different things around you and look out for the pitfalls and all of that without, having to make you do these things. So think of how you influence a child, or a child learning to crawl and to walk and to go to school for the first time. I have a saying, you don't pump the baby. You don't kick them and abuse them and berate them if you really want them to do things. So there are ways of appealing to people and getting them to move in ways that are good for them without ever having to take them and lead them. But look at what Mahatma Gandhi did when he brought the British Empire to their knees by mobilizing hundreds of millions of people to around a vision of freedom for India. Now, Napoleon Hill said a really fascinating thing, and so many people get it wrong. He said, in a situation like a sales situation or negotiation, go in and imagine in your mind that they are responding favorably to you and they're saying yes and they're in agreement and everything. And so many people think, well, that's like psychically manipulating them, that I'm projecting my will on them, and somehow through psychic influence they'll say, and that's not what Hill had in mind. As you all the panel know here, is mindsets are really important, and we constantly leak our true selves. So what he was saying is, if you're in a negotiation or sales situation or in a situation and they say no to you, do you get deflated? Does the wind go out of your sails? Do you start to wither? Do you start and thereby convey to them non-verbally through your demeanor, through your look on your face, through the way that you express yourself, a loss, a break in rapport, shoot, this isn't working out? Because if those are the thoughts that you start to think, then it's likely that the other person starts to think them too. We know this from placebo studies that, the double-blind effect was, or the double-blind practice was so that the doctor couldn't say whether or not it was a placebo. They had to believe that it was a placebo in order for the person to believe it. So it's where we are as people. If we're a person of integrity, self-value, self-esteem, of worth, and we think other people are too, we'll treat them that way and they will get it. These mirror neurons that we have and the things that we do, it will be reflected. But mindset matters. And my attitude, or the attitude, is that, you're a person of worth. You can do anything you want. If I can help you, I'm here to help you. So, how do we do this together?
Yeah.
Harmony is most important.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Or unity, in other words.
Yes. I wanted to say, you brought up the word mindset, and Christina, I know so often in my work and in the training that I do, one of the biggest focuses that I have, and there may be a lot of people who are in sales or in enrollment that are watching this, is when I face resistance, when I come upon the resistance or the objection, right? Which I don't believe that they're objections. I call them subjections, right? Because really there's no object, it's a subjective experience. And really mostly what it is simply resistance. And it's resistance for any reason, right? It could be resistance because, I don't understand. I don't believe, I can't afford, whatever the case may be, resistance. So, but in order to be influential and successful, especially in the role of being a professional sales consultant or whatever, you must be able to enter into the mindset, the resistance of the individual, and facilitate them through that so that you can persuade them, right, to take an action that would be beneficial for them. Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. You're asking such wonderful questions, and there's been so many gems from each of the speakers tonight. And so, kind of bridging on what we were talking about, and to answer your question, I think the distinction between influence and manipulation comes up. We've all kind of touched on how to inspire people to a greater possibility. And part of that is having that intention within our heart or our mind for them. And I think when I think of influence, I think of considering other people. And it's so the difference between being manipulative, being very self-centered, and being in power, versus being empowered and creating change, of inspiring change in a way that's in connection. Some of you brought up the topic of unity and being connected to others. And so being connected and beyond ourselves in the way that we're influencing. And speaking on mindset and getting into the mind of other people, that also comes to understanding not everyone is like us. And that is what makes the world such a beautiful place. That we all have different interests, strengths, ways that we see the world. But sometimes that means adjusting our communication style or where we're coming from. And I always think it comes back to intention. So what is the intention behind that, the communication or that sale that we're trying to make? And looking at, is it coming from a place of lack or a place of offering, a place of giving, a place of, offering an opportunity? And people can sense that, and making sure that we're communicating in a way that reaches the other person. This whole topic of influence also reminds me of the distinction between influence versus control. So I think one of the biggest triggers that we all face, most of us face, has to do with some aspect of control, fear of loss of control, fear of being disempowered. And one of the most empowered states we can be in is in the place of influence. So wanting to, be open in the way that we're creating that offering or that opening up that possibility, but not needing to control the outcome or control how it unfolds.
Very good. Thank you. Mo, you?
Well, thank you, Jim. And this has been such an incredible discussion so far. We're actually at the halfway point, so we're going to take a quick 1-minute break and allow the folks to share this. If you're watching on social media, go ahead and share it with your audience, and we'll be back in about 1 minute.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And welcome back. And of course, we are here on the Moe Rock Show, co-hosted this week by Jim Miller. And Jim is actually one of the co-producers of a very exciting event that we're producing here at the Los Angeles Tribune. And as year after year, we here in Southern California have participated in the LA Fashion Week. We at the Los Angeles Tribune decided to invent a new idea. And that new idea is to take 1 week and celebrate leadership and character the same way that we appreciate fashion, right? Because we believe that leadership is just as important as fashion in our lives. And so just like how we loved LA Fashion Week, we decided to actually invent the LA Leadership Week. And several of the speakers have not even yet been announced. But as you can see, we have titans of industry. We have New York Times bestselling authors like Dr. Joe Vitale, Sharon Lecter. Everyone knows Brian Tracy in this community, of course, Ty Lopez, Jim Miller, among many, many other big names that we have not even yet announced. And if you are in the Southern California community, come visit us in person. We have an event with Power Team International at the Hyatt House near LAX. So you can contact our team for free or VIP tickets. And this is such an exciting hour that we're spending with all these brilliant minds. And I know that a lot of the folks watching this in our community are entrepreneurs. And when you're an entrepreneur, it's sort of like riding a wave in the ocean. There's a lot of ups and downs. A lot of folks in the entrepreneurship community practice feast and famine. Right? Some months are better than others. And yet, one thing that I have noticed is that those individuals that consistently eat, those individuals that don't really have that famine problem are the individuals that understand this subject matter we're talking about this week. And so I do believe it is the most important subject matter for an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, you don't have the luxury of showing up someplace and being cordial and polite and getting a check every 2 weeks. That's not how the world of entrepreneurship works. The world of entrepreneurship, you have to be an alchemist. You actually have to create, sometimes from nothing, a way to make it happen, especially in today's market that's shifting and moving at such a Mach 10 speed, thanks to technology like AI, among many other factors. And so I want to just encourage the folks watching to take notes, to watch this program at least twice, and to share it with your community, because the subject matter is very vital. And we're going to spend the second half continuing to give you practical tools that you can use to apply for your lives and apply to your businesses. And with that, Jim, back to you.
Okay, you brought up a great topic, and I know this applies to everyone on this panel and probably most people that are watching. And that's the idea of leadership and influence, right? Because the truth is that there's a thin line. Maybe it's thick, but it's so easily crossed, and that's the line between influence and control. And what I wanted to see is, I wanted to ask Joy, what are your thoughts on the distinction between control and influence, and how it is that a leader, first of all, do both of these sides of the coin apply to the term leadership appropriately, or is it only one or the other? I mean, share with me, if you would, what are your thoughts on this whole idea of leadership and control?
Well, we're having a lot of word things, and you've got a panel here of people who love words. So it's like, whoa, feast, right? To be a leader, you have to be in control of oneself, I would say. And that starts, it's got to be in alignment within yourself, who you are, and knowing where you want to go. And then you can influence correctly and with integrity. It's influencing with integrity. And so this control versus influence, I don't know. It's like Moe was saying, the field is shifting. The field of influence, of being out there as an entrepreneur, of being a human being, is increasing at that Mach speed. Everything is shifting a lot right now, isn't it? So one of the reasons why I got into, there's a lot of different reasons, got into the study of language and our unconscious minds and our conscious minds and how everything fits together. And now there's the superconscious mind, which is, you were talking about unity and harmony. That is that field that connects all of us together, right? Mm-hmm. So if we are able to be in alignment with our own selves, our own spirits, then we can influence, or as Christina was saying, or maybe Rex, inspire others. Mm-hmm. And we do really need to know these tools to get on in this world. You were talking about that, Jim, with Moe at the beginning of the show. For anyone, college grads, anyone who's going into looking for a job, you need to understand how to work at these subtle levels, the subconscious or unconscious mind levels, the conscious mind. Mm-hmm. And this should be just taught, right? In schools. All of this should be taught because it is relationships and communication at the very finest levels. And without being able to communicate, we were talking about we influence, or we're always selling. A mother is selling, what do you want for dinner, to her kids, right? We are always, it's a crazy word, but selling ourselves or our own value or our own worth without even talking, just by who we are. So, I mean, gosh, we could go on for a while on this, right? The subtle levels, the vibrational levels, the alignment levels. And then what do we do with that when we think we have something so important that we want to either control or lead someone with? Then what do we do? And yeah, it's all about awareness, isn't it? All about awareness, being aware. And so anyone listening to this show, of course, become learned, learn these things, don't take it just from us. We all spent time learning about these things because we were curious. Get really curious about what's going on in your mind, your heart, and also how we are going to be able to continue communicating as human beings, whether we're making money with it or we're selling our kids the idea of what they should have for dinner. Or just even if there's crazy situations in this world, how do we be the most stellar human beings? I don't know. I'm going really big picture, aren't I? But it does come to that.
You really brought home a lot of concepts, especially like Dr. Cialdini talks about influence with integrity. I mean, that's his whole basis is the integrity that is required, and like you said, it's an authentic expression, right, of who we truly are. So operating, that's almost like the pole, right, of all influence is being able to do so from who you authentically are, right?
Can I add in one more thing here, Jim, on that thought? Is that I feel that more and more people are, what do we want to say, aware, conscious human beings. And I see that especially the younger people coming in they just already know, are you full of you know what, or are you speaking from your heart? Is this something they need and want, or isn't it? They already know. So being ourselves and getting to understand who we are, like letting go of our own limitations and blocks, do the personal self-growth, everyone, right? And so that you can be happy human beings, as well as you can also have those tuning forks of perception for other people. Anyways, just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you, Alicia. When we were on the panel again with Dr. Cialdini, I keep bringing him up because it's just, he's the master of this subject, persuasion, influence. And one of the things that I brought up to him that I had found out is, of the 4,000 universities here in the United States, less than 100, some of the numbers are as low as 40, actually have any courses that are related to sales, where sales is taught, where anything, any type of program is offered, and yet 52%, that's English majors, music majors, science majors, right? They're all going into sales. Why? Because it's the easiest entry, right? There's no certification in almost all cases. Everybody needs a sales force. But my question to you is, being Columbia University, just highly educated, and also too, a younger woman, what do you believe, speaking to the youth and college age and there right thereafter, what is the best way for them to prepare for a world where the number 3 skill set that's required of them is not even being taught to them, and in most cases they never encounter it themselves unless they're specifically led to it? And that's the study of influence, the study of persuasion. How do they prepare for the world without this skill being taught to them?
I love that question, Jim. And I think it comes down to, how are they engaging with their friends and their family? Like, I think we can sometimes think about these topics on a really, really large scale, but every day we are influencing someone, we're convincing someone, we're sharing a story and asking someone, what is their perspective? Did you agree with me? Did you not agree with me, right? When you're thinking about sales and you're thinking about the role of sales, you're creating an experience with an individual or groups of individuals to engage in either purchasing something with you, participating in something with you, joining you at an event. So what is their why? Why would they want to join in? Why wouldn't they? Like Dr. Bill was saying earlier, and Dr. Christina, like sometimes we are naturally conditioned, or we have a way of doing things. So what is the why? Why are we resistant? Why do we want to engage? Why don't we? And then think about, how does that actually apply to what it is that you're doing from a work perspective? So if you work in events and you're trying to see if someone will join in your event. Why would they want to join? Is it, if it's a concert, it's because they like the music, they like the people that are going to be at the event, they like the food that is going to be at the event, and trying and speak to them as to what their why is. Why would they want to participate? Are they going to get something out of the experience? And not always talk to them based on what you want to tell them, but understand their why. Why does this matter? Why is this important to them? And then share information that will speak to them in the way that they're listening, because then they can decide if they want to opt in to participate, or maybe if they got cornered or they felt like, oh, I showed up and I didn't want to be here, they'll feel like they wanted to opt out, right? And so I think we're not necessarily taught principles of influence and sales and persuasion in school, but at the end of the day, we're experiencing it every day. So I would say boil it down to how are you interacting with the people in your life on an everyday level, and then think about why you choose to do things yourselves or why the other people around you choose to do things. And then from that perspective, tie that into what it is that you're doing from work. Because at the end of the day, we're always trying to solve for, adhere to, support each other's needs, right? And when you think about sales and think about experiences and think about whether it's a $5 item or a really high ticket item, why would someone choose to engage with it? What are their objections? Are their objections things that might just be fears, or are they valid? Validate those feelings, but then try and guide that conversation. And I think that's where the true impact of influence, the true impact of, I don't want to just corner you, right? I don't want to convince you, but I want you to feel good about the decision that you made. And Dr. Bill was talking about it a little bit earlier, like when it comes to health and his patients, like sometimes it is creating that awareness and then maybe acknowledging you may not want to do this right now, but these are the reasons how it could be beneficial or why it's beneficial, or these are the things you should be aware of if you don't decide, right? If you don't choose to do what I'm recommending or whatever it may be. But I think part of that is also, how do you create awareness within someone so that if they're in that situation again, what will they choose? Will they be happy in their choice? Will it be beneficial in their choice? Or do they just feel cornered and now they're stuck and they're like, I don't know why I signed up for this. I don't want to be here. If it's for your good, you're like, I don't want to be here, like the gym. I don't want to be here, but I understand that the tomorrow me is going to be very happy, right? But if they really don't feel good and they don't want to be there, that's something else. So, it's a different way of thinking about it. But I think those core tenets, those core principles, they apply to your daily life, and they also really apply to business and to deals. And like Mo said, sometimes influence sales, it's really counter to what you would learn in school, but I think it's because it's really applicable. How do you lead your daily life and how do others around you lead them? And when you can understand that, you can have so much impact in the world.
Jim, may I take a stab at this?
Sure.
It could be that, the powers that be want worker bees and not lots of leaders. I mean, when you think about leaders, there's usually like one or two, and then there's lots of people who are followers. And so it kind of reflects our culture that the people of privilege, the people of status, people who can afford things become the so-called leaders, and the others are worker bees who, go to work for paycheck to paycheck. So it's not taught in the schools. It's not offered for the very reason that it doesn't serve the society. And, a good leader never calls himself or herself a leader. They just lead, and they don't need to identify themselves because the other people identify who the leaders are, because if they lead with integrity. And I think going back to what was said earlier about integrity and influence, you could maybe posit that without integrity, there isn't influence, there is only control. Yeah. And so the idea being that true leadership, these skills could be offered in school, and they should be offered in school, and that makes them very important. If I may, I just want to address one other thing, and that is, going back to Hill and what I said earlier, a couple of things. One is Hill said, have a pleasing personality, go the extra mile, deliver more value than you expect to receive, keep very positive intent in your mind, and have energy, and show up early and work late, and prove your value and your worth, and don't be a grumbler or a complainer. That is pretty much how people can really practically learn how to influence and persuade people, is be a person who people want to do things for without having to ask them or beg them or control them or make them, or to do all these techniques to try and get them to do something. There are people who like people, be a likable person. Dale Carnegie, had some approach of how to win friends and influence people. So there's some very simple principles and practices, and I'm going to close it with this. It goes back to Hill, and it goes back to what I said earlier, and that is simply, the thing named is not the thing, is a saying, or one man's meat is another man's poison, or one person's ceiling is another person's floor. How we define things and how we describe things really does matter. I always say, if you consider something a problem, well, then it's a problem. And if you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. So when we're dealing with other people, if we say they have objections, or forgive me, or they're resisting, or they're not with me, or any of those things, those are mindset issues that we can resolve. And why Hill said, keep them in the highest possible regard and or esteem in your mind, so that you're not succumbing to our own debilitating descriptions of what might be going on in the world. So if I go, I've got this person eating out of the palm of my hand, and then I think, oh my God, I've lost them. That change of energy, that change of mindset determines where things then might go. So always expect the best, and opt to choose to describe the best, and find those words, reframe if necessary, find those words that serve to help you move forward in the world without inhibition or obstacle. Because some people are on a track, and they like to put hurdles on the way so that they can jump over them.
Powerful. And, we're heading to the point of the show now where we're going to give everyone closing statements.
I just gave mine.
Here in a little bit. And Rex, I agree with you. In fact, when you look at the modern day educational system, it has not evolved since the Industrial Revolution. And during the times of the Industrial Revolution, when the primary jobs that were opening up for American families were factory jobs, it made a lot of sense for there to be a hierarchy of obedience. And it made a lot of sense for people to sit in a room and showcase their supreme skill set of being able to regurgitate information. Well, in today's world, your ability to regurgitate information has zero market value. In today's world, your ability to repeat the things the professor drew on the whiteboard has zero market value, especially when you can regurgitate just about any piece of information for $20 a month on ChatGPT, right? And so a lot of the ideas of that you were sharing, Rex, I agree with, as far as there's a lot of influential people that don't want any more influential people. And a lot of this, whether it's in the educational system, whether it's in business, whether it's in media, and that's why the work that we're doing here at the Los Angeles Tribune is so important and needed for the world, because we're the only newspaper company that's a national brand that has the conversations like the ones that you're hearing right now, that encourages independent thought. In fact, our company's slogan is change the status quo. And everything that we do is all about changing the status quo and helping people lead their lives, lead their businesses, and reach their potential by redefining news. And so I want to thank everyone here that's a part of our collective mission. I want to thank the folks in the virtual auditorium. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up this week's programming with closing statements from each individual. And before we go to the closing statements, I just want to remind the folks that are watching, if you do not yet, if you'd love to get updates regarding the Moe Rock Show, you can follow me on Instagram. There's my Instagram handle, Moe Rock Loves You, and you will get updates regarding our programming. And let's start with Christina. Christina, closing thoughts and statements for our audience, please. Floor is yours.
Thank you. So it's been such a wonderful conversation on just the difference between influence and power and inspiring. And I'll leave it with influence begins from awareness of ourselves, awareness of our place in the world, and having a vision of where we want to guide ourselves and impact and influence everything that we're connected to. And part of that is about getting to know ourselves. Like so many people have mentioned, knowing our limits, knowing our strengths, and working with those to strive for a higher potential. as well as building and choosing to create the mindset of confidence and worthiness on deep levels. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for that, Christina. Joy Willett, closing statements, please.
Well, this has been amazing, and thank you, Mo, and this beautiful team and Los Angeles Tribune for bringing these conversations to the world, which are so important. And I will say this: one of the premises in this world, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but if you're not in control of your mind, somebody else is. If you're not in control of your mind, somebody else is on some level. So remember too, all of these tools, techniques, teachings are things that other people have learned over the centuries. And we won't go down any rabbit holes, but there is a value to learning about how our minds work, how we work. And so take that time to learn in the ways that are important to you and in your what fills your heart. And again, and the other one I want to say is karma is a, you know what, a biatch, right? So when we talk about control versus integrity, you know, it all comes down to us following our hearts and also our own set of high values so that we truly can be a help on this world. That's what we're here for. So anyways,
thank you for that, Joy. Appreciate you. Thank you, Joy. Alicia, closing statements, please.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you to all that have joined this really insightful and intriguing conversation. To close, I would just leave us all with this, an inquiry into our daily lives. Where do we feel like we're being influenced? How are we showing up in the world? I think, like Christina mentioned earlier, it's an awareness and a knowing of what is the why? What is the why behind what I do, what I'm trying to share with the world, how I'm engaging with others in my community, and then understand your part in that, and then understand the other person's, and meet somewhere in the middle. And that's how I'd like to close today.
Thank you for that, Alicia. Dr. Bill Janishek, closing statements, please.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the topic because I think it's really important. I really resonate with what Joy was saying. It says, if you're not controlling your mind, then somebody else is. So one topic we could go in deeper is probably the most important person that you can influence is yourself. Because we all go through this entrepreneurial place, right? This entrepreneurial world. And like Mo, you said, there's dips and dives all the time. And you've got to be able to influence yourself out of those dips, live when you're at your peaks, and be able to resonate that same thing to others to attract you and to kind of get your message apart to the world. My favorite quote is massive men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I find that so true.
That's your favorite quote, Dr. Bill?
My favorite
That's
quote.
a little depressing, but please go ahead.
Well, if you wouldn't interrupt, mister, then you would have got the rest of it. Because it's a great learning, because
go ahead.
Most people are hypnotized walking around and they don't have the power to influence themselves out of that. And they're not living the best version of themselves. They don't watch the LA Tribune. They don't listen to this conversation, and they don't read Rex's books. And so, you know, it gets out there. So the most important thing that you can do is learn these skills simply for yourself. Be the best you, and don't let other people get in, you know, little mind worms on you. So
I agree with that, Dr. Bill. Thank you for that. And of course, the ancient Greeks said, know thyself for a reason. Mr. Rex Sikes, even though you talked a lot, we're still going to be generous and give you the floor for closing statements, please.
I want to thank you and the Los Angeles Tribune and all the people who make that happen. And Jim, a marvelous job hosting and the great questions and insights. I appreciate it. And my esteemed colleagues who I'm humbled and honored to share space with. I have a rule, which is go first. If you want someone to pay attention to you, pay attention to them. You want someone to listen to them, but not to speak, but listen to learn, become fascinated, get captivated. If you want respect, give your respect first. Be authentic and be genuine, but go first. You want to help. You want help somebody. You know, help them before you ask for help. People love to reciprocate, and with that in mind, again, if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. So celebrate everything.
And Rex, you're going to be in person at an event that the Los Angeles Tribune is producing May 18th with Dr. Joe Vitale. So we want the community to stay tuned for more information about that. And what you just shared, Rex, reminds me of something that I learned from Jay Abraham. And that's, if you want to be interesting, then be interested. And I want to thank Jim Miller for all of the leadership that he provides to the Los Angeles Tribune. And I want to have a moment for him to close us out with his closing words. And Jim has been a North Star for our team here at the LA Tribune. And we look forward to working with him for many years to come as we continue on our mission to change the status quo. Because in order to change the status quo, we're going to need individuals that can think outside the box. Those are individuals like Alicia Magnus Lewis, like Jim Miller, like Ava Manuel, like our powerful team of outside-the-box thinkers, integrity-driven leaders that are focused on those 4 powerful, simple, and important words, the 4 words that define this organization. Change the status quo. And with that, Jim Miller, would love to have you close us out, please. And I think did we lose you, Jim?
I'm here.
Okay, please.
I'm here.
Floor is yours.
Well, first of all, again, thank you. This was a very, very intriguing conversation, and I appreciate being here. I'm going to suggest to anyone that it's important that you learn the skill set of influence, and it is a learned skill that's required to succeed in business, succeed in life. Read the books, read the Kahnemans, read the Bazermans, read the Cialdinis, because it's going to empower you. It's going to raise you above your own debilitations, above your own resistance. And who knows, the world may need you as an influencer in order to improve the world, in order to make the world a better place. And it's relying upon your skill set to deliver that. And so I again, like I suggest to young people, to old people, whatever, just learn the skill, read the books, watch the YouTube videos, whatever it takes to become more proficient in probably one of the most important skill sets that we have as mankind, because it shapes history, right? Mm-hmm. It shapes history. Think about it. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We will see everyone back here, same time, same place next week. Lots of love.